Uh, this video is for anyone who is like me, in that you used to love reading and did so quite frequently and abundantly when you were younger, but through whatever reasons, be it like our increasingly higher reliance on smartphones in the last 10-15 years, to just the busyness that comes with, and leaving your youth behind and becoming an adult. For whatever reason, you've stopped reading and you've fallen out of love with it, and it may have been a long time, years even, since you've last picked up or finished a book. That was the situation I was in, and I'm going to make this video just to talk about a couple of the books that were able to successfully get me back into reading, because I tried a bunch of books and tried reading a bunch of times getting back into it, and it usually ended up failing. So let's start talking about some of the books that helped me finally overcome this repeated failed attempts to get back into becoming an avid reader. The first book that got me back into reading is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. If you're not familiar, Suzanne Collins is the author of the YA dystopian universe known as The Hunger Games. She released the original trilogy, was 3 books, and then a couple of years back she released a first prequel titled The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then just about, I guess probably like almost about a year ago now, she released the latest book, the 4th book, or the 5th book in the series, Sunrise on the Reaping, another prequel. This is actually the book that got me back into reading, I would say officially. Like, this really was the book that finally did it for me. And I can attribute that to a couple reasons. One, I was was so far out of reading that it was probably a little bit unfair to expect too much high performance reading for myself. So going with a YA reading level book really helped me to be able to like dip my toes back into reading. And also, and this is the biggest one, and the first, I guess, takeaway I would have for you, is that it's a nostalgic storyline to me. It's something that, it was a book series that I fell in love with when I was a child. Like, I can remember my mom giving me a copy of The Hunger Games when I was younger, because I had seen like a little blurb about it for the Scholastic Book Fair, and I asked for it. And it was the first book series I got completely entrenched into. So having that knowledge base of the familiar characters that I remember from my youth made it really easy to jump back into that universe. I didn't have to keep track of everybody at first, because I kind of had a general idea of all right, this is the universe that we're in, this is what happens, this is the Hunger Games. And it was really cool to go back and get prequel information, new canon, into a series that I once, it was the only thing that occupied my time, was thinking about it and reading, going through forums, reading and talking to people about the series. So if you're having trouble getting back into reading, the first book and my first lesson would be that to read something from a series that you already know, but preferably something new that you haven't read in that series. So think about the series that you liked when you were younger, and the authors that you liked when you were younger, and see if you can find newer works by them in that universe that you either didn't know about or you knew about, just never got around to reading, because it can really help lower that barrier to entry to get back into it. Alright, so the second book that got me back into reading is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This is a book that is taught in a lot of high schools. Not all high schools. I know a lot of schools, actually, to my understanding, don't teach it anymore. It was taught to me when I was in school. We read it, but I actually didn't pay attention and read it. I didn't actually, it was given to me to read in school, but I didn't actually do it because I was a crappy 15, 16-year-old. But it turns out that they teach some of these books, and the books, they call this an essential book for a reason. The author actually was what got me into this book so much, and what kept me pulled in, was how accurately he predicted the state of the modern world today. There's The book centers on this place called the World State, which is like a dystopian like a dystopian lensed total utilitarian state, and it's a very like sex and drug positive setup. Yeah, and like it's very, very normalized to partake in those activities frequently and in abundance, which is something that if you live in today, you can draw comparisons to our society. What actually kept me with this book is I finally had, getting back into reading, this is the first character that like totally like floored me. And that character is in Brave New World. It is one Helmholtz Watson. So Helmholtz Watson in this world of the World State has a very, I guess you could call it, fruitful position within society. And despite that, he is quite critical and he does not enjoy the setup of the World State, despite his very prestigious position within it. And it was interesting going back to it as an adult, that I wish I had read it when I was younger, because it was interesting, the analysis and the implications of like different people's like views on the workings and political structure of the state here, and that there's like multiple main characters in the book, and they all have very different reasons for liking or not liking the rules of the World State, and the characters are very flawed. The main characters are very flawed, and it's not painted in a black and white, right or wrong fashion. And that was something that, coming back to reading as an adult, I found very enjoyable. So what I would say for this second book and second point here is to read books that are considered essentials, or books that everyone has to read, that you should definitely read. It turns out that people aren't wrong in that. We should be reading these essential works of the past. So the third book, it's kind of not exactly a book. The third thing that got me back in, it's kind of a cop-out, but it's a more broad sweeping, is writings from the American Renaissance. That including a specific, but not limited to, authors such as Nathaniel Hawthorne, Edgar Allan Poe, Lydia Maria Child, and my emerging favorite author, Herman Melville. A couple reasons that I really like the American Renaissance writings is I believe it's one of the most profitable and fruitful times of writing in American history, if not world history. The works of fiction written around this time are just absolutely, the essays, the books, they're wonderful. If we're talking from things such as Nathaniel Hawthorne's A Blithedale Romance, which I think is a book that absolutely everybody should read. It is wonderful through its explicit like social commentary and symbolism. Hawthorne is wonderful with that. Others I would mention are any of Poe's short stories, but also as well a couple specific things from Herman Melville that I really want to mention is his short story Bartleby the Scrivener. That is one of my favorite pieces of writing, hands down, not even just short story, essay length works. As well, we have an essay by Melville that really relates to what I'm talking about, the American Renaissance writings and its importance in that period, of why that period is so important, would be his essay Hawthorne and His Mosses. This is an essay where he essentially spends like 10 to 15 pages glazing Nathaniel Hawthorne as why we should be rallying behind like American writers instead of outside European writers of the time. It was a very patriotic point in American history, and it's quite exciting reading works from that time. As well, it's something I found really interesting is that it's from like a different, this was still a point in human history and American history where there was a very common acceptance and acknowledgement of Christianity. And something that is interesting within the text is the frequent biblical references and appeals to the truth of the Gospels, which is just it's very different from the kind of writings that you can read in fiction work today. So it's very refreshing, and there's a lot of ways that as a Christian you can read these fiction books and come away with so much to apply to your everyday life. So that's why I find that period of time to be quite fruitful and profitable for your life and for your betterment and just for your enjoyment overall. So that's my list of the things that got me back into reading. It's not, it's a bit strange of a list, actually, as I'm looking at it on paper here, to start with The Hunger Games, and then to go to a high school level book, and then to talk about an entire period in American history. But through all of these things, I have found myself completely fallen back into reading and fallen in love with it to the point where it's something I'm doing every day again, and I'm really excited. I'm starting currently, do I have it with me? I just started, I got a copy. I work at a school, so I was able to borrow one of their old copies of Moby Dick, and currently about 35 pages into it, and I'm excited to maybe make some videos talking about what I think of this, I suppose. I just like talking about reading, and I'm hoping that maybe someone else out there who stumbles upon this video and gets at least something out of it to apply to help them get back into reading too. Because ever since I started reading again, my quality of life has dramatically increased, and I've felt calmer and happier than I have in a while, returning to something I loved so much as a child. So anyway, if you've watched it here, thank you so much. I'm AF Edwards, and I hope you have a wonderful day.